We are so excited to have this panel of professionals. And as we are aware, mental health is huge in our communities, in our world. And it's something that has affected a lot of us at a disproportionate rate, given what we are enduring at this time in our lives. So we have this panel of amazing people, of amazing experts. This mental health panel, this is a mental health panel of Black professionals in the Black community. And we're all excited for this opportunity. And we just want to educate, we want to learn, we want to engage, and we want to connect with some dialogue here today regarding some of the mental health disparities, some of the things that we are experiencing, some of the things that we are enduring, all surrounded by mental health. So let's get started, y'all. Let's jump in, let's dive in, and let's make this happen. So just let's start out like this. Let's get some introductions, who you are, what do you do, and just give me a little feedback. I know a lot of you, and but we want the people to know you. So let's start off with introductions. Who wants to go first, or do you want me to call y'all's names? Ladies first. So Justin, I'll let you go last, and let's start with Teresa.
Okay. My name is Teresa Zilk, and I am currently employed with COVID Recovery Iowa. That's a statewide program that was started to address the mental health concerns of Iowans, specifically for this pandemic. And I work on the media team. In addition to that, I am the founder and creator of a live storytelling event called Stories to Tell My Daughter that centers the lived experiences of African-American women and women of color.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Shataya.
My name is Shatai Joyner, and I am a mental health therapist as well as a substance abuse counselor. And also, apart from that, a podcast host of Unashamed and Unapologetic. And I work here in the Des Moines area, and I've been doing that for quite a while, podcasting for 2 years. So thank you.
Awesome. So glad to have you, Shatai. So glad to have you, Teresa, and Shireen.
Hello, my name is Shireen Connor, and I am a licensed independent social worker. I'm a mental health therapist and addictions counselor here in Des Moines, and I'm currently in private practice. I work for Thriving Families Counseling Services right now. And I'm also an adjunct instructor for multiple universities, we'll just say that. But otherwise, I'm just really passionate about mental health and giving back to the community, making sure that we're all being conscious and safe and getting good information. So that's me in a nutshell.
Right. Justin, the man, you got a lot to tell them, don't you? And I'm gonna give you 1 second. You could get your pitch out. After you introduce yourself, you could get your pitch out, okay?
Sounds good.
Follow instructions, Justin.
Sounds good. Well, I'm Justin Lewis, creator and founder of Des Moines Selma, and owner and operator of Lewis Lawn and Labor. And now I have recently just announced my candidacy for Des Moines City Council at large. So at large means that everyone will get to have a chance to vote for me in the city of Des Moines. So yeah, I'm just excited to be a champion for community and champion for a lot of the concerns that I feel like we currently put under the rug, and mental health and expanding that capacity in Polk County through the city, and how we respond to it is on my platform as well.
That's awesome. Thank you, Justin. So glad to have you. Shireen, you as well, glad to have you. So I'm Kenneth Cameron. I'm going to moderate this panel on tonight, and I am a licensed mental health therapist as well. And I'm in private practice at Aspire Counseling Center. And we are just here, like I said, to have some good dialogue and to educate, to acknowledge, to inform, to learn, and just to engage with one another regarding mental health in our community. So let's do this. We've introduced ourselves, and everybody, I'm so glad to be on this panel with you. I just want you to know that. I'm excited. We're going to move through pretty swiftly, and we want to get to some questions at the end that people may have. But let's just dive into this. I want you all to kind of fill the people in on your interest in mental health advocacy, and let us know if you have any personal connections or stories to what drew you into this field and into this work. Kind of let the people know how you begin your journey in this walk. And we'll go around and we'll do it the same way we did it before. And we'll start with Teresa.
Okay. So I'd like to tell people that my interest in mental health advocacy is really personal. I would say first it began with me. I was probably in my late 20s, the very first time that I ever went to see a therapist. Didn't really know anything about therapy. Actually thought therapy, I had a lot of misconceptions about therapy. And so I was really scared actually that they would tell me a lot of negative things, but that's not really what happened. And I got what I needed from the process. It wasn't until a couple of years ago when my youngest son started having a lot of issues, and we were having to be a part of the mental health system. And it just kind of, you know, as a mother, having to learn what I needed to learn to get my child the things that he needed. And I would say most recently, that same son that earlier I had spoken about, he died by suicide in December. And so it has become a deeply personal matter to me that I am able to speak on behalf of our people and families in our community, so that they understand the importance of mental health, so that you understand that, you know, it's not just the individual that's being treated. Really, it's the whole family. And what it really takes is the whole community. In order for the person, the family, takes a whole system, a healthy, nurturing system, in order for mental health to work the way that it should. And so for me, this work around mental health is deeply personal. It's very personal. And I'm very committed to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So for me, personally, I went to therapy when I was a teenager. I had some struggles in my family, and I navigated through several systems during those years, during high school years. And I really saw the benefits, even in younger age, of the different assignments I would have. I was required to attend different support groups with other kids my age, and we kind of connected together. And I was able to just see how much that helped. And in college, you know, I took a couple psychology 101 type classes, and I really, really fell in love with it, and was able to tie some of those concepts to, hey, I learned this in therapy. And as a teenager, you think therapy is, you know, somebody's making you go. It's not where you'd like to be, but seeing how it helped shape some of some of the decisions that I made in my younger life. So that inspired me to go into that field. And what inspired me really to do even more advocacy outside of just the therapy office and start a podcast worldwide was to really decrease the stigma and the shame that goes along with mental illness, and to spread more awareness, just even more so than just my clients and my community, but through podcasts, I can reach people in different states, different countries who also experience a lot of the same issues and have that same shame and stigma regarding mental health. So very passionate about that and about myth busting and normalizing and just being able to have open dialogues with friends and family. If we can sit at the table and say, hey, my diabetes is really, catching up to me. Why can't we say, hey, my depression's really catching up to me too? So conversations like that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I grew up really lucky. I had a really supportive family unit. And I think that because of that, I was influenced to really learn how to communicate and talk well, and be able to normalize my feelings. I think on a basis that isn't normalized in our community. And I think that it was kind of even unknowing to myself, hidden even in my family unit as far as how well we communicated as well. By the time I got to college and started figuring out what I wanted to do, I had started working in the substance abuse field, really passionate about addictions and doing that kind of work, but I felt really limited because substance abuse is so temporary. I really felt like I wasn't able to ever dig down deep into what the clients were really needing, which was mental health care, and that co-occurring care that comes with substance abuse or some sort of addiction and the mental health side of things. It's a very combined and complex unit. So I learned that I needed to go back to school in order to be able to do and use a lot of those skills that I wasn't able to use before. So that's really how I think I got into mental health in general. But I do think that the advocacy part is kind of just through that work of meeting with my clients, understanding how important mental health is. I began writing to the newspaper. I began writing to journals and expressing, how important it is for, people of color to understand and know what it is to have mental health issues, what it means to be abused, what it means to have these addiction issues, and not be afraid of them, not be ashamed of them. And so I just started using the skills that I already had to basically advocate for my community. And so I'm originally from the Des Moines area. I moved from Iowa City back to Des Moines, and I really wanted to make my stamp, I think, on where I grew up as far as being able to advocate and push how important it is for us to be united as a community and really focus on these disproportions and the unfairness when it comes to not only mental health, but insurance and things like that in general. So while I don't have a podcast or anything, which is really impressive, I'm sorry, I do like to write, and you'll definitely see like my journal articles and things like the Des Moines Urban Experience, or just different articles in different newspapers, magazines, just trying to put my 2 cents out there and advocate. And then as an instructor, I teach at the University of Iowa at Grandview, at Simpson. I really try to advocate that way as well, not only as a instructor, but as a person of color, and saying, hey, this is really important. These are the things that I didn't learn when I was in school, and the things that I think as future practitioners, we need to be aware of, and really advocating for that as well.
Justin?
Well, let me first off acknowledge just the space that we're in right now. It's whenever we're talking about mental health, when we're talking about being vulnerable, it's truly a blessing and an honor to have these spaces being created. Because in America, feelings and vulnerability and being emotional and grieving and feeling through things, that's not welcoming and inviting. And I think that leads to a lot of our world issues, specifically America. What I've learned is, specifically in this space where I'm trying to tell people about past wrongs and how they are in the moment, it brings up emotions, brings up guilt and shame and pain. And one thing I've learned is I have to be very cognizant of the space that I have to make so people can get it. In that there's a lot of, dying to myself when I'm teaching, that I'm doing for the greater good of my community. There's a lot of, at times self-degradation for them to answer the tough questions, ask me the tough questions so I can make sure that it's answered so they will start working against our community. So I'm just thankful for everyone who's just making this space and expanding it in Iowa and throughout the world. So I'm so thankful. As a person who has his own Black therapist, a male Black therapist, thank God for them. We need more of them, and our Black women too as well. But as a Black man whose existence seems to always be a threat to other people, and I'm always tone policing myself sometimes, and I'm always cognizant of what other people are perceiving of me as if, am I a threat, or who's changing streets when I'm walking down the road. I'm always mindful of that, and that's a space that I think a lot of Black men need to seek out therapy for, seek out peace, and I'm just really thankful that I have found that person that does that for me. We meet once. I happily meet with him once a week, because you don't realize the impact of racism and bias has on you until you start unpacking that stuff. As a person that was a victim of a hate crime, and I had a person beat me down and call me an N-word, and in the midst of that, my family decided to still forgive him and not give him a life record. There are some things that go on in this world that people need a therapist, and everyone needs a therapist. And I just want to be an advocate for that, because I'm super empathy. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm soft, I'm squishy, and I'm vulnerable. And a lot of the world's atrocities are built up from people's frustrations, not having an avenue. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Advocacy is so important because there are so many people out there that don't know what mental health is, and there are people who do know what mental health is and are not doing anything about it. So we have to, and when you don't know what it is, and you're having these emotions and these feelings, you don't know how to react to it. I mean, you're out there and you feel, I'm not understood. You don't get it, and so just to be that voice and let somebody know, I understand what you're going through. And you know what? It's okay. And we're going to get through this together. And that's what we don't have a lot of. And that's why advocacy is so important, because it's for us to get out there and spread that word, to educate, to inform, and to make people aware. And I got in this field, y'all, because of the need. Our community needs it. And we don't have it. We're few and far between. There are very few of us African-American and people of color that are practitioners and therapists and things. And we need that, because no one can tell anyone that it's okay if they can't relate. We can relate to one another. That's why we need more of us, So I got in because of the need. Everything that's going on in our community, everything that's going on in our world, I knew that there was a need for this, and that I could be one of the ones to push it forward, because we have influence and we can receive from one another a lot of times better than we can receive from somebody that doesn't understand and that doesn't know.
Right.
So we have a job to do. And I'm so glad that this opportunity has presented itself. Another reason why I got into this is because I can relate to it, and it's personal to me. And I'm grateful for Teresa's story. And I want you to keep being strong, because the situation that you've had to endure with your son, it's not going to be in vain, because somebody needs to hear it. And I'm so grateful for you being so strong, because I know it's not easy.
No.
But somebody needs to hear it. So I really appreciate you. And that's the reason why I'm in this field. One of the reasons why I'm in this field, because I can relate. And this is personal to me as well, because, you know, it's so funny. I didn't know what was wrong with me. Remember when I said earlier, you know, people don't know and they don't know what they're going through. They don't know mental illness. We would think that by now, everybody would have a good idea what it is, but they don't. So that's why advocacy is so important for us to get the word out there. And you all, true story, I diagnosed myself in graduate school. I reading through the books, and man, I looked at my classmate, I said, I have this. And she was like, dude, come on, shut up. I'm for real. I said, I didn't know what's been wrong. And so we began to talk, and she said, man, you really think you have ADHD? I said, I know I do. I said, I've been trying to figure this out forever. And so
which is a superpower.
About 8-9 years ago, I got diagnosed with adult, but I had it as a kid. Mm-hmm. Do you know how much and how far much more advanced I would be? I mean, I'm good now, but I'd probably be even farther if I would have known what was wrong with me.
Yeah.
But we have people who ignore it, don't want to call it what it is, don't know what it is, and so that's where we come in at with this advocacy piece. Yeah. Okay. And with telling our stories, because somebody needs to hear it. Somebody has to hear it. And it will help somebody along the way. Because this isn't just a personal thing. This is affecting our homes. This is affecting our communities. This is affecting our families. This is affecting everything around us. It's affected. So it's good to be able to tell your story. It's good to be able to advocate. It's good to be able to spread the word about it, because everybody needs to know. And so with that being said, a question for this one for Teresa and Justin.
Okay.
And I think we've all spoken on it a little bit even, but what are the attitudes from our communities about seeking mental health care? And what are some of the misconceptions providers may have about providing mental health treatment to members of the Black community? So it's a twofold question.
What was that last part, Kenneth?
So the first one is, what are the attitudes from the community about seeking mental health care? Mm-hmm. And then the second one is, what are some of the misconceptions providers may have about providing mental health treatment to members of the Black community?
So I guess I'll go ahead and start. So we've talked a lot about stigma. I mean, stigma is huge. But I do believe, what I know is that a large part of that stigma is because, well, let's just talk about the idea, the stereotype of a strong Black woman. I mean, it's good to be strong. It is. But it is okay to seek therapy if you are having an issue, if you are overly stressed, overwhelmed, if you feel like you're experiencing depression. It's actually wisdom. That's your body speaking to you. So this idea of a strong Black woman, or even a strong Black man, not to say that Black people are not strong, I'm not saying that, but we don't, we often see it as being weak if you are reaching out to ask for help, specifically when it comes to mental health, because nobody wants to seem weak. Nobody wants to appear crazy. I don't like that word.
I don't either. I don't even use it.
Nobody wants to appear crazy. Nobody wants that. But these are the issues that we deal with. Those are the issues that we deal with.
You're right. Justin?
Yeah. Oh, these are good questions. I love it. Yeah, I think the first thing is there's a lot with being a male. So there's a lot of toxic masculinity that I have learned that I'm unlearning. I don't have to be tough. I have nothing to prove anyone about me being a male. I just need to be focusing on myself. If that means I want to cry and the next moment I want to shoot hoops, like, so be it. I'm learning that it's okay to feel your emotions and
Yes.
let them channel through you, feel them in the moment, register and recognize what you're going through and pass it on. But it's when you hold on to it, that's when you start having problems. I think with the Black community, I'm gonna be honest, like, we got to stop trying to be strong for everyone. We got to stop telling people you're going to get, maybe, a little bit of prayer. Like, prayer goes a long way, but a therapist, now Jesus, goes a long way.
What's the t-shirt that says you can do prayer and Jesus and therapy?
Right.
It works. It all
It
works.
does. And I'm glad, and I'm so glad that you all brought up those points, because what we have to understand and realize is this: everyone has a breaking point.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone.
Yeah.
And I really want to serve our communities notice, Black community, white community, every community in this world, that therapy is not a sign of weakness. Therapy is the exact opposite. It's a sign of strength.
Strength.
Yes.
Therapy
Kenneth,
is a sign of strength.
I want to say something, Kenneth.
Go ahead.
As I've been coming into this public figure, I'm going to continue to be me, but this public figure space, you make yourself susceptible to attacks. And I can tell you more than ever, having that therapist in my back pocket when someone wants to get out of pocket.
So true.
Game changer. And I would tell every person that's in a forward-leaning public space, being a public figure, to do that. Like, you don't have to be strong for everyone. You just have to be strong for yourself. And when you're strong for yourself, then you can be strong for others.
That's right.
So yeah, there's my piece. That's it.
We have to understand that we have to begin to spread the word. It ain't the ones that come to therapy that I worry about, it's the ones that need to that don't. Because therapy is a sign of strength. That's what people don't understand. I mean, if people would go and realize and experience what it can do for you, I think that would be the game changer right there. But because we don't even give it a try, then we make assumptions. Then we assume that it's like this, and we assume that it's like that, and then we listen to what other people have to say. But you have to get it for yourself. When you're going through a mental breakdown, or you at your lowest point, you're feeling like you're all alone. I mean, that's when you seek out, and no one can tell you, well, you're experiencing this because of, you're doing this because of. Your feelings are your feelings. And to understand that and to unpack that, that's what the professional is there for. You don't have to do this on your own, and you don't have to do it alone. That's what the professional is there for. Now, let me go into the second part, because what are some of the misconceptions that providers may have about providing mental health care to the African-American community, people of color? Let me serve notice to everybody out there in social media land. We are not angry. We are not angry. Oh, they're so angry. They're so angry, and they're so, and if we were, we have a right to be. Mm-hmm. Our passion sometimes, and a lot of the times, and most of the time, comes off maybe in a different manner, but please understand the difference between passion and anger.
Right.
We're not angry people. We're not out to get anybody. But that bothers me when we are deemed as angry and aggressive.
Yeah. I'd also,
and I hope that you all can speak to that. I hope that you all can speak to that, because I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that anybody could ever think about us.
Right. Yep.
Is that we're just so angry. Teresa, you said something.
Well, I wasn't necessarily going to speak to anger, but I do think that definitely is a point. The thing that I was going to bring up in terms of children and in terms of my own experience and what I've observed over the years is that there seems to be a very high percentage of diagnosing African American children, especially boys, with like ADHD. I mean, there seems to be an overdiagnosis.
Absolutely.
I see that. I've seen that a lot. And also, there seems to be an overdiagnosis of diagnosing Black males with schizophrenia.
Yes.
That is not always the case for everybody, but that seems to be a really, really prevalent diagnosis for Black males.
So she's absolutely right. And statistics will show that people of color, African Americans, are more likely to be diagnosed with a higher diagnosis than their counterparts. For instance, a personality disorder, schizophrenic, bipolar, opposed to others who just get a simple depression, anxiety, and things of that nature. And we are far more likely to be diagnosed with a personality disorder. So she's absolutely right, and that's statistically proven. So, you know, I really wish, and my prayer is that therapists and practitioners will begin to look at people of color just like they look at everybody else, and know that a lot of the times it is depression, and it is anxiety, and it is an adjustment disorder, and it is not schizophrenic, and it is not bipolar. So
I think we see those same issues. So in my implicit bias training, I talk about healthcare outcomes, and we see those same issues when, you know, women are in the birthing ward and, you know,
Yes.
someone's experienced a heart attack. There's essentially white doctors can't code switch with us, but we can code switch with them. So
absolutely.
it's, you know, we always talk about we're able to be bilingual in our culture, and we're able to be bilingual in the dominant culture. You want to call that whatever. But
Right.
but I think what has been the game changer for me, I've had a white male therapist starting off, and I switched to a Black male therapist. Nothing against the white male therapist, but when, you know, this summer started picking up, and, you know, the unrest and me being involved and seeing tear gas and people getting hit by rubber bullets, that's traumatizing in itself.
Absolutely.
And then you're having to minimize yourself for people to understand your existence and experience so they can get it. That's a lot to bear. So that's why I sought out a Black male therapist who could walk me through, like, this man gets it, could walk me through what Malcolm X and MLK would do, and, you know, give me historical references on what other Black leaders would do, and being mindful of, you know, the words you say and the things you're doing, but while also taking care of you and your household. Like, man, it's been revolutionary for freeing up my mind, my mentals, my heart, and space for other people. Because now I can identify, like, I've been given the tools to identify when other people are going through a mental crisis or going through something, when they're attacking me on Twitter or Facebook. I can see in their heart that I need to give empathy and defuse and de-escalate. And you know how, you want me to be honest with you? I've won so many people over because I can de-escalate and realize it's not personal. They're just going through something that they feel like I could be a vessel, then they can just blow up. But I turn it around and make build it into something it isn't.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I can see the disconnect. There is a clear disconnect
Absolutely.
from white providers. I know allies. I would say to those white providers, be more mindful of our culture, of what our experiences are, because then you can be able to diagnose, you know, a certain behavior or display that is cultural to us, and be able to give it the right, you know, diagnosis.
One of our main goals in this field is to do no harm. You're harming when you misdiagnose. You're harming when you assume. You're harming when you have these prejudices towards people of color, because again, we're no different, you know, except for we endure a whole lot more than the average individual, you know, as far as, you know, discrimination and racism, you know. So you have to understand the background. You have to understand the culture. You have to understand what we endure on a daily basis. And then let's have a conversation. And but don't just have these preconceived notions and already have your judgment and you're set and you know this is what it is just because you saw my black face. It doesn't work that way. So which leads me to Justin answered a lot of it, but I want Shatai to chime in on this, on how therapy has made a difference in your client's life or in your own life. What are the benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. So therapy has made, first I'll speak on my personal experience in therapy. Just being able to understand myself is huge.
Exactly.
Being able to understand maybe where I learned some of my opinions, behaviors, beliefs, and how they affect my behaviors helps me better to learn how to cope with some things that can be problematic at times or that I would like to change. And same with my clients. You guys kind of touched on, just simply not knowing what mental health issues even are, or that something is even creating problems in a person's life. We would walk around, if I had back pain every day, I'm going to, and I don't know what happened. I didn't have a major injury that I know of. I'm not sure. Eventually, I'm going to check it out. What is this back pain from? I have it every day. I need to fix it. Then a professional, a doctor might say, hey, well, you said you had a fall 2 years back. Maybe it's catching up to you now. They'll dig into it, right? So the same thing can be said. If I'm feeling down, if I'm not feeling myself, if I don't want to be around my friends and family, I can go to a professional and they can, dig deeper and find some information. Hey, okay, so no, this isn't just you. You've always been like that and that's just how you are. We can kind of pin this back to a pretty big experience that you went through. And this is the aftermath of that. I like to give a lot of comparisons to physical health because I know people really can wrap their minds around that more so than the mental health, because a lot of times that gets chalked up to, well, that's just how you are. And that isn't the case. Also, being able to have someone who is safe, who is trustworthy, who, you're protected by law, the things that you say, unless, there's some specifics that you're going to harm yourself or someone else, and that has to be shared. But otherwise, hey, you can go to this person and build a relationship, an appropriate, healthy relationship, where a lot of times people don't have that or don't know how to confide in someone. Or maybe the people that they've been confiding in don't give good advice. And so going to a professional who can help with that is huge. And I have seen, benefits of therapy in so many different ways, from self-empowerment, clients, from first coming in my door, just very self-defeated and just with an array of issues. And then, months down the road, doing things like, hey, I had a job and I actually kept a job for months now, whereas before I couldn't even leave my home. Or, now I had the courage to stand up for myself in a relationship where somebody was treating me poorly or calling me names, or maybe even realizing that that's not okay. And so just seeing people be able to improve their self-worth and find self-love and that empowerment, I think is huge. It's huge. And I think there's a domino effect. It all starts with the self. And when you're able to build yourself up, other doors open. A lot of times we see, it seems like everything might happen to you. I never get these jobs. I never keep a relationship. I never keep a friendship. It's always something bad. But sometimes if we take a look at ourselves and say, hey, what's going on with me? Maybe I need to treat myself better. Maybe I need to make some changes in myself so I can be a healthier person. Then you start noticing the positives and you start seeking out those positives, and you start seeing that opportunities actually come your way because you find that self-love and you move in a way that is more empowering.
Absolutely. You find there's so much relief in the process and in therapy because it's like you are coming in contact with somebody who gets it, who understands, who believes you, who knows that this is real. So just that alone has an impact. That's why it's so important that we begin to advocate and press for mental health parity laws, which will treat mental health just like physical health. And it's very important that those laws are passed. In Iowa, as you all are aware, they're at the bottom of the totem when it comes to mental health. They're like 48 in the country. And that's embarrassing. That's disgusting. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's unnecessary. We can address these issues. And we're not asking for much. We're just asking for legislation to pass these mental health parity laws so that mental health is treated the same as physical health. And, you know, it's very hard for, you know, people don't understand mental health. And again, like that's what I said, that's what we're here for, because it's hard to explain something that you can't see. You know, sometimes you got back problems and you're stumped over, you broke your leg, you got a cast or whatever, you know, but mental health is covered. It doesn't always come out in different forms of illness or until the school is shot up, or until the movie theater is shot up, or until the Asian massage parlor is shot up, or then you want to scream mental illness. But otherwise, you don't see it. We don't see it. We don't know. But you can't see the wind either. But you can feel it. You can't see the wind, but it's there. So we need to use wisdom when speaking in regards to mental health. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So takes me into my next question for Shireen. What are some of the common concerns that lead Black men, Black women, and families to seek out therapy and support? What have you seen are some of the things that draw them to it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's just like any other person, honestly. And, you know, families have, you know, issues getting along, connecting. You've got addiction, you've got behavioral issues. Sadly, I feel like when I was first in the program, as far as learning my craft and everything, I feel like a lot of push was put on, you know, the Department of Corrections and getting our people that way, getting people through DHS, getting people through probation. And I still, you know, see a lot of clients that way, just because that's something that's important to me, is to be able to be an advocate for those individuals who are re-entering the community and things like that, in those capacities. But I feel like, especially with the last couple of years, I feel that there are more and more, there's more and more education, there's more and more understanding that, you know, we have issues just like anybody else that we need support and help with. And as some of you guys were talking earlier, I kept thinking, you know, if you ever have a therapist and you say, have you ever been to therapy? And they say no, I would be concerned. I think, again, this is one of those situations where everybody should have a therapist. Everybody should have that experience of understanding what it is to go through those biases, those issues, those concerns as a therapist, as an individual person. Like, it's important for us as therapists to know what that feels like and what that can, you know, what we can relate to people. So I would always be concerned if somebody was like, you know, you have a therapist and they don't know that experience. That's an issue to me. But on top of everything else, like I was saying before, you know, we need help just like with anything else. We are overworked. We are stressed out. You know, this just exactly what somebody else was saying about, you know, misconceptions about Black women and Black men and Black families in general, racism in general, and microaggressions and the things that we have to see on a regular basis that, again, not the average person necessarily has to deal with. As people of color, we have to deal with more and experience more, and that affects our psyche, it affects our self-esteem, it affects everyone we touch after that point. And to say it doesn't, it doesn't even make sense to me. So I think that, you know, we have to get over this idea that Black men, Black women are only in mental health because they have to be, because it's a criminal thing, because it's DHS making them be there, and it's actually an experience that they want to learn and gain from and experience just like anybody else. But again, I think we have to continue to get rid of some of these stigmas to show people what it's really like to have a fulfilling experience in mental health. And I think so many people have gone into mental health and had really bad experiences, and that has portrayed their whole color on mental health in general. And I like to tell clients, you know, it may not be me. I may not be the therapist for you, and that's okay, but we're going to find someone who does click with you. We're going to find somebody who does fit you. It's not one therapist fits all. That doesn't work. My personality is completely different from Kenneth's. It is to pretend like I understand the experience of a Black man is not, it's dumb. It's dumb. I don't know that. And so for Kenneth to be able to relay that to a male client on a better and more understanding scale than me, it's okay. It's just that client needs that experience. And same for me. I have more experience in addictions and working with you know, offenders, working with all those people. And those are the things that I may be able to give that maybe Kenneth or somebody else can't give. It's not a monolithic experience when it comes to therapy. We are all different. We all have different personalities, and we are going to connect with some people better than others. Don't let that one experience be the entire thought process for therapy in general. You may have one bad experience, but shop around, find the person that really you can connect with, and I swear it will be rewarding.
Some of the common concerns that lead Black men and women and families to seek therapy and support, in my experience, has been also mistreatment, racism, disparities, lack of understanding, employment, hostile work environments. I mean, I could sit here and probably go on for an hour. I mean, because these things are things that we experience, and a lot of times, like she said, we're no different than nobody else. But I tell you this, we sure endure a lot more. The racism, the disparities, the lack of, you know, and a lot of times that's what we're going to therapy for, because we are at our breaking point with how we are being treated and how we're done, and the unlevel playing field. You know, that has been one of the number one things, and those are the common things and concerns that individuals of color seek out for therapy for. Now, yes, I see the family dynamics and the depression and all that stuff. We see all of that, but the things that I named lead to that, to the depression, to the anxiety, to the racism, the mistreatment, the discrimination, all of those things lead to that. So, you know, we get to the underlying issues that we are faced, that they come with, and the causes of these symptoms and things. But, you know, we are at a place that, you know, we need people to acknowledge what the African-American community is enduring. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. You can't change what you ignore. So we need individuals to be aware of what others have to endure and acknowledge that the playing field is not level. That's what we need. So those are some of the common issues and common concerns that lead people of color to seek out for therapy, you know? So one of the things that I want Teresa and Justin to address is what can mental health stigmas look like in the Black community? How do the stigmas impact the ability to seek care? And y'all address some of that a little bit, but kind of chime in on that. What can the mental health stigmas look like?
I'll just, sorry, say again, like, you know, there is the stereotype of the strong Black woman. It looks like that. And it looks like, you know, you may be feeling like you don't need to ask anybody for anything because you can do it yourself. But it is good to realize that you're human and that you can ask for help and you're not weak because you asked for help. You can't shoulder the world's problems. You simply cannot. And it's not healthy.
That's right.
So that's one way that stigma shows up, and that's what it looks like.
Right.
I'll piggyback off of that as a Black male, in support of our sisters, our Black sisters, that now that we do know this, and I've been doing this my own practice, now that we do know there is that, belief that our sisters can handle it, they can be strong on their own. Like, no, like they actually need us and we need one another. So what I've been doing, like when I see something, I've just been extending my hand out, like, how can I help? I saw this take place. I stand against that. Like, just being mindful as a Black man, because I personally see, like, when we're advocating for our community, there is this disconnect. And that goes back to some old civil rights and, house Negro, slave Negro thing. But one thing I'm trying to talk about is building and uniting the Black community. How are we not talking about those stigmas of, oh, you're too light skinned, you're this, you're that, you're educated? Like, I'm done with that. I need our community to lock in and walk forward into these halls of power and hold people accountable who have been doing us unjustly for thousands of years, not thousands, hundreds of years. And that has to be us getting our house right, and me loving on my sister and being accountable to how I treat her and the things I say to her and how I raise my Black daughter, and her being mindful of her existence and her love and her beauty and knowing she's enough. As a Black father, she has to hear that from me. She can hear it from her mother, but she needs to hear it from me too.
That's right.
So it's so much bigger. And I'm just thankful that we're having this conversation now.
So I think it's fair to say that the stigma really impacts the ability to seek care because you don't want to be labeled.
No.
And so that right there is what we need to refrain from. And instead of labeling, we need to encourage.
Strong, we can do it on our own.
Strong,
Right.
and you don't want to bring shame to your family or to yourself.
But remember,
no one ain't gonna think you're crazy.
Right. Main thing.
Yeah.
So much.
So what do you, Shireen and Teresa, here's
Okay.
something that I want you all to answer. What do you see as a major barrier for African Americans in getting adequate mental health care?
One of the things that I know of, and I've heard from many people, they think they can't afford it. They think they cannot afford it, and they're not aware of, sliding fee scales at the community clinics that we have, or they're just not aware of the resources that are available to them. They're just not aware.
So true.
Yeah,
So that's one thing that I would add. Shireen, what would you add to that?
yeah, I was gonna say that as well as high costs. I definitely have a tendency to take on clients pro bono too, just to show good faith to people who can't afford it, who really do have nothing to be able to do that. And I know of other practitioners who do the same too, because they care so much about the community. But on top of that, I guess, again, it comes back to lack of diversity. Like, I think that the pandemic was a good example of showing how many of us, we were all in the same boat as far as being scared about COVID-19 and our families and everything. And to see how many people reached out for help in that time period, and really wanting support and help. I think that a lot of people realize, well, even just in the Des Moines area, where are our Black practitioners, having lots of clients going, who do I find? Where are they? I don't know even where to look. And that's sad. That is so sad to me that, like, we have a handful of us that are in this community, and sadly, I think we all know each other, or at least are aware of each other. And so it's like, I would get clients going, and I'd be like, I'm full, but I know so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. Do you want a male or female? Like, that's where I was at as far as like starting to refer people to fellow practitioners, because they're there's just not enough of us. And I think that we have to find ways of getting more Black men, especially, but women as well, to be involved in the mental health field. And I think of how many Black men are practitioners, and again, just a handful. And I think they're always full because we just need them so badly to be able to be mentors and advocates and all the stuff we've already said about the benefits of mental health. To have those men there, I think, is really important. And again, as a female, I know that there are boys and men that I can help, but sometimes it really is different coming from that Black male experience. And same for women. I know there are women who go to men going, you know what, I really liked him, but he just doesn't understand what it is to be a Black woman. And that's, again, no fault of theirs. It's not their purpose. That's what we're here for. So that's another one I can think of right off the bat. I guess the other one I was thinking of too is just thinking about like healthcare companies and insurance companies who don't cover, period. I think that's another thing. At this day and age, it is 2021, and we don't cover mental health in some of our insurance plans. That to me is ridiculous. Like, what I don't know where they're getting their information or their data from, but that shouldn't even be a thing anymore. As far as it's just being irresponsible. And again, are we thinking about really the people that are in this community, or are we thinking about lining our pockets? Because that's really, I think, where it comes down to is there shouldn't be no insurance company that doesn't offer some sort of form of mental health coverage.
I agree. And you know what?
That's the healthcare system in general,
it was
too.
set in the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, that it was all supposed to be covered. So a lot of times I don't even know how these people are getting away with it, because it should be law. So sometimes you even have to challenge these insurance companies and let them know, no, that's not the way it goes. Explain to me why it isn't in here, or where it is, or how you're wording it. So another, and which brings me to my point that another barrier that African Americans that is a major barrier when it comes to African Americans seeking adequate mental health care is miscommunication. Some individuals, you all will be amazed at how many phone calls I get, and the individual asks, well, how much does therapy cost? And I say, well, do you have insurance? Yes. I said, well, depending on your coverage, it can be as simple as a copayment. And they're like, you're kidding me. And sometimes mental health is, in some insurance policies, is considered what do they call it? It's a preventative care. So when it's preventative care, there's no copay a lot of the time. So knowing that therapy can be covered by insurance has been a huge misconception, because people don't know. And I mean, some, you have to reach certain limits and then it pays out and different things. So knowing what kind of coverage you have as far as insurance, and you may not have to pay anything. And if you do have to pay something, it's bare minimal. So that's one of the biggest barriers as well, that people are misinformed and they're not aware of insurance even being able to cover mental health care. So moving on, I have a question for Shataya. Okay, so we all know that there's a shortage of Black and brown mental health providers across the state of Iowa. We know that having a provider that shares your lived experiences can help people of color feel more comfortable in seeking and staying in care. What is needed to work towards greater representation amongst mental health professionals? What is needed to work towards greater representation amongst mental health professionals in our community?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things that we've really touched on so far is just normalizing therapy in general, normalizing taking care of your mental health, therefore making it a desirable field to go into. a lot of people, if we don't even know what it is or why we do it, why do I want to choose that field? Right? So just including that in our packages in high schools, and, you know, when we're doing career days and we're doing those things, starting at the younger age, just making it a more desirable field by providing information on what it really consists of, what it looks like. Also providing incentives, you know, scholarships, funding, grants that are available as well for people to get that education. A lot of times there are not there, well, I don't know, but I can only speak on my experience. There's not a lot of funding available for master's level counseling programs, as there are other, even mental health counseling specifically. There might be more access to funding for like rehabilitation counseling, or like for me personally, I actually was able to get funding because I did 2 areas of study. I did rehabilitation and mental health counseling in my
Exactly.
education, which kind of just funded them both for the most part. But that was just kind of a fun loophole. But there's not a lot of funding, and I think that's definitely needed. Just like you can, you know, every corner you turn, there's a scholarship for nursing and CNAs and things like that. There's more funding nowadays you see for like engineering, things like that. Let's get more funding for education for mental health professionals. And also, one thing that I don't believe is talked about as much outside of this field, but we all know, Kenneth and Shireen, those entry level positions are very, very challenging. It's where you get the most knowledge, the most education, the most experience. But those are the jobs that you have to start off with, the only jobs you really qualify with an undergraduate degree before you get that next level master's education. And, you know, incentives for those first entry level jobs, those hands-on direct care jobs, that's where there's a lot of burnout. That's where, you know, maybe if an individual got a bachelor's degree and they're working some of those jobs and the incentive is kind of low, it's exhausting, the self-care, the appreciation isn't really there. You know, sometimes people change their career goals.
True. True.
And so just
You know,
providing those incentives. Yeah.
and another one is, and a lot of people don't know, and Iowa has it, but there's no money in the bucket. They don't allocate things right. You know, I mean, you know, and that'll be a whole nother subject, but Iowa has tuition reimbursement for mental health practitioners, but you'll never see it because there's no money in there.
Mhm.
So what do you think, Shireen, about that?
Yeah, I'm on board with everything that she was saying as far as scholarships and everything. I definitely can speak to that experience of going to graduate school and going, where's the money? Where,
Right.
you know, and being able to also come from that standpoint of getting my bachelor's degree and going, this is not enough to make a living, and being like, we really need to remember what our helping professionals do as far as, you know, the sacrifices that we make and the things that we do every day is worth something, and remembering that, you know, our jobs are important. Because I mean, we have not only burnout, but we have vicarious trauma. We have secondary trauma as far as dealing with some of the after effects of things like this, 9/11, the pandemic, any kind of huge crisis. You have to imagine all of the helping professionals who are involved and on board with that. How do they deal with that going home every night after hearing 12 clients in a row with traumatic and horrible experiences? We take that home with us sometimes, and it's hard to separate. And then we talk about things like burnout and compassion fatigue and things like that. And so I think that, you know, understanding that we are worth the money that people are paying us as well is also important. But that's a whole nother insurance
right.
and all kinds of things. That's a whole nother conversation right there.
So in knowing this, question for Shatai and Justin. We talk a lot about cultural competency and sensitivity as concepts, but in practical ways, how can white mental health providers make people of color feel more comfortable receiving and seeking mental health services? How do white providers build these relationships and gain that trust?
So cultural competency is so important in this field as a provider, because what that means is nobody can be an expert on every single culture. It's just not possible. But what that means is being open to learning about different cultures and understanding different cultures and even experiencing them. I can never say I know what it's like to be an Asian American woman because I'm not one, right? But who am I surrounding myself with? Are all of my friends people who look exactly like me and do all of the same things that I like to do, eat all of the foods that I like to eat? In our personal lives, being more mindful about, learning about everyone, being friends with different people who have different backgrounds and different cultures, and immersing yourself in theirs and having those conversations with your friends that are different than you on a personal scale. On a professional scale, there's so many trainings, free trainings, cheap trainings, trainings everywhere about everything. So just being more mindful about doing some of those and learning different things. Traveling, it's endless. There's so many ways to do it, but you really have to ask yourself, well, do I surround myself with people who only look and think like me? If so, then there needs to be some more work done.
Agreed. Justin?
Yeah, so I think it's going to take work. It's going to be difficult to increase your competency so people can feel comfortable enough to share your experiences. So again, I did indeed have that white therapist, but there were multiple times where he just said, I don't understand. I don't know what avenue or remedy to give you on that aspect, because I'm a white male. I haven't experienced racism. So it's it's a thing that can only be fixed by picking up a book, reading about I love Ibram X. Kendi, because that book on anti-racism was so liberating to me, with just how I viewed our people. When he was talking about the letter he wrote, and he was already criminalizing the Black men and blaming Black men for all their woes. And he has those moments where he remembers it and he like shocks himself, like, oh, I can't believe I said that. So yeah, it was just freeing for that. So for people that already have, Black folks that have some internalized racism, white folks have to do the extra work to understand what this community has gone through, what it is going through, and then how you not perpetuate more when you're entering this space. This is it's delicate. It can be done for sure. But yeah, you're going to have to do work. You're going to have to surround yourself with people that don't look like you, and don't expect to get the nuggets immediately on our community. It takes genuine relationship and genuine work after it. So yeah.
So
that's the short answer. I could do this for 2 hours on what you really
all day. So basically, in a nutshell, what I would say is that the best way that Caucasians can help people of color feel more comfortable is educate yourself. Stop assuming, stop judging, acknowledge that there is an issue, and then we can get somewhere. We get somewhere. But when we are constantly told that we're delusional, that's not happening, and anyone that is awake, anyone that wakes up in the morning can see everything that's going on and can call it out and see that there are disparities.
Right.
Try and reverse things. For example, the Capitol insurrection. What if that would have been all Black Lives Matter? There's no question it would have been a bloodbath, a complete bloodbath. It would have been so many bodies laying around, it would have been ridiculous. But because white privilege played a part, and because 99% of them were Caucasians, And because they were doing this for President Trump, it was a different story. But no one will ever be able to tell me that if that was Black Lives Matter, that things would not have been different. Matter of fact, you can't tell me because a few months before, it already showed that it was different when Black Lives Matter was there. So acknowledge, educate yourself, stop judging, don't assume, and ask questions. That's how you can help. It's exactly how you can help. Now, moving along, I have a question for Teresa and Shireen.
Okay.
African Americans make up 30% of new COVID-19 cases and are disproportionately diagnosed and dying from COVID-19. The pandemic has further exacerbated the health disparities experienced in the Black community. What impact has COVID-19 had on you personally and or professionally? What has been the larger community impact?
I have my
Go
answer,
ahead.
but if you go ahead.
No,
Jen.
go ahead. Go ahead.
So I was sick with COVID. I personally, my whole practice, we actually all got it eventually. We had a family who was diagnosed and did not know and did not disclose that they hadn't gotten tested, or that they had been tested, excuse me. And so we all ended up getting COVID at the same time. And it was interesting because I think that, so something professionally that we had done that no other agency had really done at that point was we stayed open. So a lot of the buildings and a lot of the mental health agencies during that time had closed, because obviously they were scared of being infected. We stayed open. We didn't actually close until, well, when we got sick in April. And so I think that that was something that was really interesting because we stayed open so long, we had a lot of people who were in our community, other Black individuals, and just people in our community in general, I should say, that were thankful because they wanted mental health services, and we had stayed open to be able to give those services, that other people weren't risking the chance to do so. So I mean, we definitely had a protocol and lockdown as far as, you know, how we were dealing with that at that time. We were very careful, but the owner of the practice was very explicit about wanting to stay open for the community as long as possible, because so many other agencies had closed. They had just shut their doors and basically were like, if you don't have access to online services, then too bad. And a lot of our people were low income who don't have access to internet, who weren't able to get computers, who rode the bus, you know, so if they didn't have services through us, they didn't have services at all. And so that was really interesting to see as far as the disparities of just in the community, seeing how many businesses just shut their doors and kind of just said, well, good luck, you know. So I that, speaking from that point, but then also I like being sick with COVID and I felt like I had to rush like through my illness. Like I got sick, and I would probably say I was really sick for about 3 weeks. I was in and out of bed as far as like, you know, all the normal symptoms, coughing, couldn't taste anything, breathing was really hard. I couldn't even walk up the stairs. Like it was bad. But I felt like, you know, as soon as they gave me the green light to go back to work, I felt like I had to, because there was nobody else I felt like that was there to do the work, you know. And so I wasn't the only one. Other people at my practice kind of felt the same, as far as, you know, I don't think we got the chance to really heal and get through it, like maybe some other people did, because they felt like they had that experience to be able to heal and get back. I feel like now that everybody's kind of getting back to normal, the vaccine is here, that we can kind of finally relax. But at the time I felt like we were go, and if we weren't here to help people, who would be there? And I wonder if more people would be at risk mentally, or whatever. I guess, yeah, that's my experience as far as that goes.
My own, I guess, personal experience, I'm married to a first responder, firefighter. So there was always this kind of this thought of, well, he's constantly exposed to it. He was constantly exposed. He has since been vaccinated, so we're okay there. But when I think about the larger impact on the community, I think for a very long time, especially I'm thinking about the beginning of this pandemic, I think there was a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about what this was, how it would impact you. I can just remember looking at different memes and things on Facebook when it first came out. People were saying, what was it? It was ginger ale. It was ginger ale. I don't remember. I can't remember exactly. But what I'm saying is,
The cure for COVID is ginger ale.
yeah. But what
Don't
I'm saying
forget
is,
toilet
I just
paper.
really feel like there was a lot of misinformation, and so I believe that education makes a huge difference. And letting people know that there are services available like Shireen's agency. And of course, I work with COVID Recovery Iowa. All of our services are free, and they're statewide. They're free for anybody, no matter where you are in Iowa. So, and I did plug that. So,
But also, just to go back off of what you were saying too, Teresa, is also that that misinformation as
Yeah.
far as just about us in the Black community. I remember, Black people are not gonna get it. Remember at the very beginning, it was like, oh,
Yeah.
Black people are not susceptible
got
to it.
ginger
It's gonna
ale.
be about other people. And and now we found out that maybe we're more sensitive to it. And it's just like,
Yep.
where did all of this information come from? And
Misinformation.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it was misinformation or no information at all.
Mm.
Okay, so I mean that was one of the biggest impacts that had on us, and it's still very little information. So yeah, that has definitely impacted our communities of color. But I want to chime in on this really quick. But our time is here.
Are we
So
ready
if
to
she
go
has
to
questions,
Q&A?
but I kind of want to know, the pandemic has taken a toll on children and families, with school closures, reopens, and and more folks working from home. How can we more understand the trauma and things that have increased by this pandemic? As schools reopen, as life begins to move forward again, what understanding those behaviors and stuff is going to be huge. But as we move forward, how can we provide additional support, whether that be counseling services or other services to individuals?
Yeah.
Okay.
Teresa, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'll just speak from the perspective of the job that I do now. I am not a counselor, but with the offerings, the things that we offer to people, we offer webinars on parenting in a pandemic. There are all kinds, over 25 different support groups that people can access. There is like there's a virtual story time for parents and their children. And while yes, it is reading a story, but it's actually so much more than that. It's giving parents an outlet and a different way to kind of approach the stressors and things that go with the pandemic. And it's also helping them to set a routine, because what I found during this whole time is you need to have just your daily routine. And so it increases and sets a sense of normalcy, which is something that all of us all of us can benefit from.
I think that this is, and I'm gonna turn it over to you, Ashley, after this, but I believe that in this season of this pandemic, we are dealing with layers.
Yep.
Layers. Racial unrest, unemployment, homelessness,
Yep.
all of the deaths, and then you throw the pandemic on top of all that. I mean, come on. So one of the things that we need to do is stop assuming that this is a one size fits all. Everybody's situation is different. Well, I'm not scared.
Absolutely.
You shouldn't be scared. Well, you're probably not scared because your community is not dying like mine is. You're probably not scared because COVID isn't having the same effects on your community as it is on mine. So we have to get to a place to where we are listening, doing more listening and not so much talking. So, and I think that's one of the things that has happened in our community, that everybody wants to assume that it's like this and it's like that. And well, the stats already tell you that it's a disparity, you know, in the deaths and how it's attacking us opposed to others. And I would just say that we need to get to a place where we are asking more questions. And another thing, not be so forceful and be more sympathetic. Well, the schools are opening and you're going to go back or else you're going to be in trouble. No.
Empathy.
You know,
Empathy.
we got to have an understanding. This is not a time to be a bully. This is not a time for our politicians to be bullies. It's not a time for our politicians to be so demanding. It's a time for them to be understanding. It's a time for them to be sympathetic. And it's a time for them to listen and understand what's going on in other people's homes, in other people's communities, in other people's lives. Because everybody, it's not a one size fits all.
Absolutely.
So that's one of the things that I feel, you know, will help our community in this time of great trauma and to let them know that you're supportive, you know. So I turn it over to Ashley, because I'm sure we had some more, and we'll have to do this again, y'all. But y'all are so amazing. I mean, we could just, you could tell that this is lived experience because, I mean, we have so much on the inside, you know. And so, yeah, like Justin and Teresa and Shataya and Shireen said, we can go on all day, but we won't, because we'll be here all night. So
well, I just want to say like a heartfelt thank you, you know, from me and then from the folks in NAMI Iowa, you know, for taking time out of your days to like talk to us about mental health in your community. It's something that we're working towards with health equity, and especially with mental health care. And, you know, there's so much more to be talked about and so much more of a conversation to be had. But I'm glad we got this start tonight. You know, I want to open this up to the audience. You know, we're a little past time for our webinar today, but does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask our panelists? I don't see anybody replying in the chat box, but please feel free to submit your questions in the chat box. And
I think there's a lot of questions on there. I saw some popping up as we were talking.
Let's see. So we've got a question from Heather. So in a nutshell, what can NAMI advocates and other advocates encourage our elected officials to do to make mental health treatment more accessible to communities of color?
Pass telehealth. And here's the deal. You know, I don't even know why we're arguing this. I don't understand why this is even up for discussion. Pass telehealth and things will be better. There are very few providers and practitioners of color, very few. You could probably count on my knees too. Well, as far as African-American licensed mental health therapists, there are two of us, myself and Mr. Kelly. Now there are LISWs, there are other things, but as far as African-American males, LMHCs, so my thing is this, it's a shortage all over the state. Now, Waterloo, Fort Dodge, Cedar Rapids, Davenport, Des Moines have the largest pockets of African Americans. The majority of us are in central Iowa. We can't reach there. But guess what? With telehealth, we could. We have to get to a place to where we are not being so restrictive, and that we are beginning to open things up so that mental health care can have an impact. It will never have the impact that it should. It will never have the impact that it could if we keep things restricted. And it is more about dollars than the people. But, and that's another story for another day, the dollars don't even make sense. Because if you would provide mental health care, physical health care would fall into place and prices and things would decrease, not increase. So I just wish people would understand what they're talking about. Now, call it what it is. If you want to support the insurance companies, say it and stop blaming it and dancing around it. Say, okay, well, the insurance company funded me, so I got to support them. Just say it, because that's what it is. And we got to get to a point to where it's not about the insurance companies think you come to serve Iowa, the people of Iowa, not the insurance companies. So we've gotten it twisted. And this is where voting is very important. That's another story for another day too. I'll let Justin do that. But that's what we need. We need them to pass effective mental health laws that will help decrease mental illness instead of increasing it.
Great. Shireen, I see that you wanted to answer this question live, so I'm going to pass the mic.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, as you know, feed off of what Kenneth was saying as well, as far as telehealth, with the pandemic and them getting rid of a lot of those structures that were getting in the way of us being able to help people. I have clients in Waterloo. I have people in Cedar Rapids and other cities right now because of the fact that we were finally able to, like, you know, reach those people in those little towns and those little cities. And so I have a lot of clients of color from other cities that I wouldn't have even been able to pronounce or know of, because they found me on Psychology Today, or they found me through the website, or whatever happened. I tried to be on as many, you know, different kinds of lists or whatever as possible so that people can find us, you know. And then I try to also be an advocate for our community just by knowing our other practitioners and saying, hey, I don't have an opening, but Chatai does, but Kenneth does, you know, and being able to say, like, you know, hey, I don't have openings, but to reach out to our fellow practitioners and support each other, I think is another big thing too, is, you know, us being able to support each other as practitioners is huge. So this is a time to do that, and advocate for each other as well. And again, I'm all with the money thing, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, you know, I think this is a really good segue. I've got a lot of questions. Got a lot of questions about where folks can find you. So I know that not only are all of y'all professionals, but you wear a lot of different hats and do a lot of really great things in the community. This is the time to plug what you're up to. You know, where can folks find you if they want to, you know, see you for services? Maybe what are some classes or different things that you've got going on that you'd like to share with us, so we, you know, we can continue the conversation and stay involved.
Sure. So I am practicing at House of Mercy currently, and that's here in the Des Moines area. And a lot of people are not aware that we do standalone mental health services without substance abuse. So we're very known in the community for substance abuse services, but you don't have to have that issue to get mental health therapy outpatient here as well. And for my podcast, it's called Unashamed and Unapologetic, and can be found on any listening streaming platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, as well as social media. So
I am located here in the Des Moines area. I am not a practitioner, but I do work for a statewide mental health grant that is geared towards pandemic-related issues. And if you want to reach out to COVID Recovery Iowa, you can find us on the web at www.covidrecoveryiowa.org. We also have a partnership with the Iowa Concern Hotline, so you can reach us at 1-800-447-1985.
I can say that I'm with Thriving Families. I think I said that earlier. I'm with Thriving Families Counseling Services, and that's located in the Des Moines area as well. we offer an array of services as far as family therapy, couples therapy. I actually specialize in sex and couples. So if anybody wants sexual wellness or health counseling, as well as couples or family counseling, that's something that I really am passionate about in doing, other than in my substance abuse counseling. But then, like I had referred to before, I also teach. So if you're ever interested in taking a class, I guess, at any of the universities, you can look me up. I also do trainings for cultural bias and cultural competency trainings for NASW, as well as the Iowa Board of Certification, which is the board that supervises substance abuse counselors in the state. So if you're ever curious, I do a whole training series at IBC, and then every now and then when I have time, I try to do something for NASW. So feel free to look me up.
Justin?
I'm not a therapist. I'm glad I'm the last one. I am not a therapist, but again, I advocate for, expanding mental health and, bringing forth that capacity where everyone has access to it. But yeah, you can follow me at Des Moines Selma. You can find me on Instagram. And yet again, I am running for Des Moines City Council at large. So you can go to justinlewis.com, find out a little bit more about my platform and what I stand for and what I believe in. So there's that.
That's fantastic. I would love to see it. And, our executive director plugged in the chat, if this is your first time attending a NAMI webinar, if you aren't super familiar with what we do and you want to get involved with mental health advocacy, please sign up for our list. You can visit us at www.namiiowa.org. Panelists, thank you so much. We're hoping to post this up on social media again, so people who weren't able to join us tonight are able to, watch the webinar and stay involved in the conversation.
We have to do it again, though. We
need a round two.
We have to have a continuation in a round two, and we'll open it up to more questions, and we'll finish off on some of the questions that we had. But I think we need to have this more often than not, because these conversations is what changes things. We can no longer, and we will no longer be silent. We have to
Absolutely.
Be very aware and educate and inform the people on what's going on in regards to mental health and mental illness.
Same.
Thank you all, and hope everybody gets to enjoy some nice weather, and this won't be the last, just the first.
Right.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you all.
so much.
Thank you all. It was a joy.
Good night.